So welcome. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Vanessa Gushel. I'm the Managing Director for the South Carolina Department of Commerce Europe office, and I am based in Munich, Germany. I have my colleagues with me today. They are in South Carolina, so we will be sharing the screen today. So let's get started. So today, you'll be learning about the state of South Carolina, a U.S. state located in the southeastern region of the United States. I'd like to briefly outline what we will be talking about today. Before I do, I want to point out that throughout today's presentation, there's a theme. It's not explicit. That's why I'm pointing it out now, but it's really that of preparation. Our state is very prepared, and it's not an accident. The state has been very intentional about its growth plans and has created some very ambitious goals around growing our state economy, around very specific clusters. And of course, today we are talking about the life science cluster. So why do we think our state is so special for this industry? That is what you're going to learn today. First, you will hear an overview of the state, acclimating you to where we are, who operates there, what kind of industry makes up the local economy, what does our international landscape look like. We will also hear from a cluster organization called SC Bio that was specifically designed to connect life science companies from around the state, as well as create a comprehensive roadmap to expanding this industry's footprint. Again, this speaks to our preparation in laying the foundation for continued growth and prosperity. I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to travel to South Carolina. My contact information here is on the screen before you. And finally, we'll be speaking also to a company operating in South Carolina. He will share his experiences of growing a life science company within South Carolina. And we have asked him to share his thoughts on why South Carolina is such a great place for his company to operate. So let's get started. Joining us today from South Carolina, we have Mandy Brawley. Mandy will be providing an overview of our state. Mandy is the Deputy Director for Global Business Development for the state of South Carolina's Department of Commerce, and she is based in Columbia, South Carolina. Mandy has a lot of experience working with international companies, especially from Europe. And during her time with us, she has helped hundreds of companies manage their expansion plans to the US. Collectively, she's brought more than 11,000 jobs and $2 billion to our state in investment. Mandy, the floor is all yours.
Welcome, and we're so excited to have y'all on today. I'm just going to talk briefly about South Carolina and Department of Commerce and what we do. So the U.S. expansion support from Europe and from our South Carolina Department of Commerce team. So we work with companies from all over the world, trying to get them here in South Carolina, and we also work with companies here in South Carolina to help them expand and grow. So we can help in pretty much every step of the way. If a company is interested in coming to the United States, but doesn't really know where to go or where to look, or has a couple of states in mind, we can help with the decision-making process. So we can run costs of doing business comparisons. A lot of companies from other countries don't know the difference between us and any other state here. So we can show you the differences and how South Carolina is usually always on top in every step of the way. We can also help in the site selection process. So we can help with building searches or site searches. If you just tell us what you're looking for, we can help provide buildings and sites that meet your requirements. We also have great workforce programs. They can help train your employees, help screen your employees, everything to get you ready to come to South Carolina. We can also make connections, introducing you to local county developers, anyone in the state with permitting. We are a small state, and we are able to get all the right people to the table to help businesses land here. And we also help with incentives. We incentivize companies for bringing new jobs and investments to the state. So let's see. So we are globally connected. So we have Vanessa in our Europe office, but we also have offices in India, South Korea, Japan, and China. And all of those offices are here to support the state of South Carolina. If you're not familiar with South Carolina, we are on the eastern part of the United States, and we are located right between Miami and New York, so right halfway. And why this is important is that the area that we are in, 1,609 square kilometers, can be reached by 66% of the U.S. population. That just means in drive time, you can get to half the United States from South Carolina. As you can see on this map, this is a Google picture showing basically where all the action is in the United States. And you can see it's all on the eastern side. And South Carolina is right here in the middle. So we are positioned to be half the United States in a short amount of time. The infrastructure in our state, while we are a smaller state compared to some, we've got great infrastructure. We've got the Port of Charleston, which is one of the most efficient open water seaports on the eastern seaboard. We have 2 Class 1 railroads here in South Carolina and access to 2 international airports with daily direct flights to Europe and Asia. And these will kind of show you the nonstop flights from Europe. So all of these areas that you're able to travel in a short time to South Carolina. So with Charlotte Airport being close by and the Atlanta Airport, which are only 30 minutes flights to South Carolina, you can get direct flights daily. Quality of life. So this slide just shows you for $100 what you get bang for your buck in South Carolina. So $100 in South Carolina would average $110 compared to California, where your $100 would only be worth about $87.11. So this just shows you that you can stretch your dollar here in South Carolina. And it's one of the reasons our cost of living is more than 10% below the national average. Along with our cost of living being so low, our construction costs are 11% below the national average, along with some of our utility costs as well. Our industrial power rates are low compared to our neighbors. And also we have no inventory tax or state property tax. We also have a low unionization rate here in South Carolina, and the second lowest average wage in the Southeast United States. So you might know some of these brands that are up on the screen. So these are some of the well-known brands that we have in South Carolina. And I only mention this because a lot of people know these brands, and it's easily recognized, but the majority of our companies are actually small to medium sized. And so a lot of companies that we have here are suppliers for these companies that you see on this screen. So our European presence in South Carolina, of 1,200, more than 500 of these facilities are owned by European-based companies. Let's see, and but on this one you can see that the flags get bigger based on how many of the companies are from those countries here in South Carolina. So where Germany being largest with over 200. You kind of see they're all in clusters of the state and all throughout. So our growing industries, these are the ones that we're focusing and seeing the most action on. Advanced manufacturing and materials, our aerospace industry with Boeing and all of their suppliers here. Automotive has always been big, especially with BMW and Volvo being here and their suppliers, distribution of logistics. But recently, over the past year or two, agribusiness has been one of our main growing industries. And even more than that, especially this year and last year due to COVID, the life science industry has become our fastest growing industry here in South Carolina. So to support all those industries, we have to have a good talent pipeline. We need to have the workers here so when companies come, we can have those jobs and fill them in. This is how we do that. We start in the grade schools, in high school, with apprenticeship programs. We're trying to start teaching them that trade jobs and workforce can go besides 4-year education. So we start with our high school team, and then we move to our technical training colleges. So we have technical colleges located all throughout the state. We also have higher education and advanced degrees here too. So we have Clemson University, University of South Carolina, all here in the state. So incentives, when a company decides they are looking to come to South Carolina and create new jobs and investment here, we offer incentives for them to come here. So we have statutory incentives, discretionary incentives, and these are all varied depending on the location that you're going in the state. If you're going to more rural area or more urban area, how many jobs, how much investment in the wages that you are bringing here into the state. We also help with site selection. So if a company is looking to come, we can help find a site that fits their needs. Existing buildings, we have a database that shows all existing buildings in the state and the sites that are available. We also have speculative buildings, which are shells of buildings. So the company can come and make it exactly how they want to make it. Additional support in South Carolina. So one of our programs, Source SC, helps suppliers connect to each other. It's a great program. It helps companies find locally the raw materials they're looking for or the suppliers. One of our biggest programs, especially for international companies, is our landing pad program. So this is for companies that are international companies that do not have locations in the United States, but want to dip their toe into it, maybe create a sales office or a small warehouse just to get a presence here. We can help with that process. Sometimes it can be scary not knowing how the United States works and South Carolina laws. So we can help every step of the way with that, by finding office space, by putting you in touch with the right people. So getting that office started here in South Carolina, so then one day, hopefully you will grow and expand and have a larger operation here in this state. And that is it. I appreciate y'all being here. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Vanessa or myself, and we'll let everyone proceed with the life science webinar.
Thank you, everyone. Mandy, that was great information for our companies. Thanks so much for sharing that. Our next speaker today is Erin Ford. Erin is the interim CEO with SC Bio in South Carolina. Her focus there includes working on corporate strategy to coordinate the activities of their 3 statewide offices. She serves as our in-state expert on all things life science, and having spent many years working exclusively with life science companies, she really understands your needs and requirements in order to become and maintain and stay competitive. In light of COVID, her organization has been increasingly more important than ever before. Yesterday, in fact, our governor issued an executive order to prioritize the expansion and recruitment efforts of new pharmaceutical and medical device manufacturers. So we have state support in terms of speaking to companies that are in your sectors and talking to companies about what opportunities are in our state. Erin is here to tell us exactly what they do, how they work, and what resources are available to you on our call today, considering a South Carolina location. Erin, the floor is all yours.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Vanessa, and what a great overview that Mandy was able to show to give a real sense of South Carolina and what we have here to offer. And so you see this great picture here in front of you. This is just an example of many of the life science companies and locations that we have in South Carolina. And you also might be surprised to learn, yes, so this is South Carolina, and we are one of the fastest growing industries in our state and excited about the opportunity. So Nephron Pharmaceuticals was the site that you just saw on your screen, and our board chairman, Lou Kennedy, that was her home away from home, Nephron Pharmaceuticals, which has grown over the past few years. So SC Bio is the economic development group focused exclusively on the life sciences. So you heard from Mandy. We work with her team and also Vanessa and her office to recruit companies and also support our existing industry. So we are partners with the team that you heard from and are going to hear from today. And our vision really is to make South Carolina the most industry-friendly and innovative life sciences ecosystem in our state, in the United States. So SC Bio as an organization has been around for over 10 years, though about 4 years ago really redeveloped what we are and our focus at SC Bio, and that is of economic development. We talked about having discussions like we're having here this morning and supporting our existing industry. And what we needed to start that was to have a roadmap for the future. So we developed a strategic plan and had an economic impact report that helped promote that. And that happened about 4 years ago. And so now we're on our third version of the strategic report. If I was able to hold one up, you'd see it's rather large, though it really helps us focus on the future and what we want to do to grow and innovate the life sciences here in South Carolina. Mandy mentioned this earlier. We are the fastest growing segment in South Carolina. And as you might imagine, while COVID, we continue to recover from that, and obviously a horrible experience for us, though as we're getting through this, the bright spot for us has been the innovation and for our companies that have been able to change or adjust their operations to really have an impact, not only here in South Carolina, through the nation, and some, in fact, through globally. And we do have a presence that might surprise you of the life science firms here in South Carolina, hitting almost every county that we have here. And the economic impact, $12 billion. And you see that the average wage that our companies have, almost double that of the average here in South Carolina, which is very important because we want to see these great jobs, good jobs that are here in South Carolina continue to grow. And that economic impact actually is a figure from 2017. So we know that continues to grow. I mentioned the amount of life science companies, more than 700. And you see on this map that it really encapsulates so much of the state, 42 of the 46 counties. And I'll point out here, you see these clusters in this upper part of the state we call the upstate, and the Greenville, a major city in the middle here, the Midlands, and then Charleston County, which is one of those that it continues to grow and expand, and has really seen a big push in life science firms locating in that region there on the coast. And as you all know, as life science firms, it's good to be close to each other and have those clusters, whether it is just for sharing some best practices and workforce as well. So you're in this industry, so you know the makeup of it. So how do we define it in South Carolina? So for biotech, making up the pharmaceutical market, med tech, digital health, which continues to expand more so than we ever thought due to COVID. And we have centers of excellence here in South Carolina in digital health and remote patient care. Bioag is also a part of what we do, though we really focus mostly on human health. Life science distribution, I mean, getting creative in logistics and supply chain, right, is what we're all dealing with now. If you see in this picture in the middle of your screen, that life science distribution, Softbox Systems distributed the Pfizer vaccine throughout the United States. They've developed the packaging for all of the Pfizer vaccinations that are going out. So right here in South Carolina, having an impact on getting those medications that they are effective to those that need it most. And then, of course, research, testing, and medical labs as a part of the life science industry. So we talk about building, advancing, innovating, and growing our life science ecosystem. It sounds great. So what does that really mean? So I won't get into everything that's on the screen, but what this really we hope to signify is that we're doing the work that indicates those words that we're sharing with you. So building the ecosystem, really convening and getting together those industry leaders so that we are on track as an organization that is really focused on our existing industries to support them, which then in turn is good for companies like yourselves as you consider a location in the United States. You know, advancing the industry and really making sure that people understand our story. So having that integrating marketing and figuring out what are those policies that we need to be looking at towards the future. Fostering innovation is something that is so important, and as many as you know, you've probably heard of, right, Boston or California is where the funding is. How can we continue to grow that in the Southeast and in South Carolina, and really, and at the end of the day is to impact more people in a positive way. So our core focus areas, we've mentioned economic development, touched just briefly on that workforce talent and development that we work with, again, our state partners that Mandy mentioned earlier, as far as the outreach along the way at the different levels of education. Being the voice of industry, you know, important when there are specific legislation or areas that are affecting or having a chill on our industry, we are there at the State House or at the federal level with our partners to make sure that we're representing our companies in the right way. Accelerating innovation, we talked about also that growth and that network and collaboration can't be underestimated, those powers. And then of course, marketing and sharing our story here to the world. And and how we do that is just this. So just a few of the companies I want to highlight that are in South Carolina, which is one here is Thermo Fisher Scientific. You may be familiar with that name, likely you are, of course. And in South Carolina, this location is in Florence. They produce APIs, produce 70 products a year, both commercial and clinical, have over 400 employees at that campus. Arthrex, one of the newest additions to our life science ecosystem in that upper portion of the state I mentioned, and they are state-of-the-art in orthopedics and implants, and a state-of-the-art facility that they launched in South Carolina in 2019. They continue to grow. Charles River Labs, and you will hear a little bit more from an executive later in this program about their company and their what they're able to offer as far as a portfolio of quality control testing solutions. Such an interesting and innovative company that really has continued to grow here in South Carolina, and we're happy to have them as part of our ecosystem. Abbott Laboratories used to be St. Jude. They have been located in South Carolina for many years, and they produce the cardiac rhythm devices, pacemakers, and they really are defining the state-of-the-art implantable medical devices and arrhythmia correction, neuromodulation, battery performance, all from South Carolina. And they have continued to expand and grow. Nephron, you saw this photo at the beginning of the presentation. Excuse me. One of the fastest growing pharmaceutical companies, in the country. They produce generic inhalation solutions that treat respiratory problems, and the industry-leading 503B outsourcing facility. They have grown and have over 2,000 employees. And when we talk about that partnerships, right, that's so important. I often am on the phone with Lou, talking with other companies that are looking to either come to South Carolina, whether they're in Europe or beyond, or they just might be in another part of the country, about partnering and how can they work together. And it's really impressive to see those partnerships happen, as well as Vicor Scientific. This is one we mentioned in that lower part of the state, Charleston, which is really a burgeoning life science destination. And Vicor has continued to expand. Great story, a startup company with 2 employees. And excuse me while I just take a quick drink here. It's coffee, I guarantee. And they have grown from 2 employees to over 200, actually 400 nationwide now. and really were able to ramp up their operations thanks to COVID-19 testings, really though focused on their antibiotic stewardship and resistance identification. So and can continue to expand under that portfolio. As Vanessa mentioned earlier as well, the governor is full support of the life science industry and wants us to continue to expand this industry based on what we've learned during COVID. So the importance of having all of the companies, supply chain, API that we talked about earlier that Thermo Fisher does, all of the facilities that are important to be able to continue to grow and have that supply chain that we so rely on. And that is that focus on repatriation, onshoring. And we have an economic development task force. So when we talk about that coordination, right? So you're hearing from us all today, excuse me, how do we work together? So we work together not only as a state with our regions and specifically in the life sciences to make sure that you are getting the information that is relative to this industry, so that you understand what is available to you not only at the state level but even federal level, because now there are so many opportunities that weren't there before that really want to spur on this innovation. Again, you saw Mandy talk about the landing pad opportunity. So let's talk about it specifically for the life sciences, because our industry is so specific and has so many different nuances that maybe someone coming in that is opening up a warehouse, they may need just your basic information, and most likely you're going to need a lot more than that, right? So it depends even where you are in that, in your business, as far as being established, or even those that are just starting out. Introductions to top clinicians, we can do that. Top academic researchers. We talked about the collaboration. I was mentioning how, talking with Lou and opportunities that people are seeking out and contacting us at SC Bio. Reimbursement strategies, how do you navigate the healthcare systems? FDA navigation, that always, it depends on the day sometimes. Though, how can we connect you to the experts so that you're starting off on the right foot? Clinical trials, investors, innovators, again, just a wide variety of experts that as you're trying to figure out, your place and your location, how can we connect you to those other experts that are specific to our field? And what are some specific places that you could land? We talk about the landing pad. This right here, this building is where we have one of our SC Bio offices, and there are landing pads available there. So whether it's that small office space, if you just want to have a salesperson to have a place and to be in that mix, right, of other life science companies. So that is just one. And then, having that access to the Medical University of South Carolina here, the University of South Carolina. Clemson University has a medical school associated with Prisma Health. And there's just so many opportunities for collaboration, though I know it's so big and wide as you're considering. So we can really help hone in on those as you are looking to make South Carolina, someplace, we hope in South Carolina, your home. And that is one thing that we don't forget, is that access and that connection to the healthcare systems for what you're doing and what you're working with. In the end, it's helping people live better lives, and that access to patients is so important. And so we definitely want to highlight that today. So we hope that we are all getting back on the road soon. We are planning this fall to get back out there as it is permitted and it is healthy. We are all healthy. So we'll be at Swiss Biotech. Hopefully that will be underway, and Medica. So if these are places that we hope that the conferences happen, and maybe we can see you there. The building the life sciences talent for the future, so important. And touched upon earlier, we're working on pilot programs at the technical schools, getting out to the grade schools so that the students understand what the life sciences is. If you're not in the industry, people often confuse it just to be a doctor or a nurse. So we're expanding that conversation and adding to it so that the pipeline of workforce is bright. And we have so many colleges and universities that are also focusing on the life sciences, as well as our research institutions. And even the Greenwood Genetics Center works with so many pharmaceutical companies and is world renowned in their specific industry and what they do, but many people don't know that are not in that industry. So again, that partnerships and collaboration, and then for us growing our own, which again will leave opportunities up for that partnership, commercialization and so much more. As I'm ending the end of my presentation here, just again, that collaboration, want to reinforce, you see a lot of logos on the screen, but we are the state affiliate of the National Bio Organization. So we represent our companies and the state of South Carolina. At Bio, we'll be at the virtual event in just, I guess, in a couple weeks. AdvaMed on the medical device side, and then pharma as well. And you see the other partners, our economic development partners, of course, the state of South Carolina, and our educational partners as well. This screen is one of our favorites at SC Bio because it shows the breadth and depth of all the different type of people that are invested in this industry in South Carolina. Of course, more than 50% of our membership, our investors, we call them, are from the industry and lead the way, though we have so many other support services, along with educators, IP attorneys, you name it, right? Those that are involved in the industry are a part of our organization. And our board of directors is amazing, again, with the breadth of knowledge that they bring to the industry and to really help drive what SC Bio is doing to ensure that we are on track and making things happen and continue to make things happen for the best here in South Carolina. I would be remiss if I did not mention that we have an annual meeting that we often invite international companies to attend. It will be in February and plan to be in person, likely with some virtual components as well as we get back to the business of things here in the world, right? So a little bit later in the program, you're going to hear from one of our fabulous board members, Dan Nodes, who's Executive Director of Microbial Solutions in that business at Charles River, which is one of the companies that I mentioned here earlier. And so that is where I will leave things. Happy to answer any questions as you may have it. And I will send things back to Vanessa.
Thank you, Erin. That was fantastic. Wow, just wow. What kind of, have a lot of, the resources are really quite astounding. Okay, so if anyone has any questions about Erin's presentation and you need to get in touch with Erin, please don't hesitate to let me know. We did have a speaker today scheduled from Charleston. We're having some technical issues, and unfortunately that is not going to happen. If anyone has questions regarding today's speakers, please let me know and we will get your questions answered. So our final speaker today, Dan Nodes, is with Charles River Labs. Dan serves as the Executive Director of Strategic Initiatives and Business Technology for Charles River Laboratories. In that role, he is responsible for working closely with Microbial Solutions leadership to shape global business development strategies, to elevate and support the prioritization of critical business initiatives, and oversee and manage a portfolio of growth projects key to achieving their business's 5-year plan. Dan also continues to serve as the business technology partner, and he acts as a primary liaison between IT and microbial business leadership on strategic initiatives. Dan, we can't wait to hear from you and hear all about your company, what you're doing, and how you have been operating and growing in South Carolina. How has South Carolina provided that fertile ground for your company to really take off?
Absolutely. So, give everyone some context in case you haven't heard of Charles River Labs before. As a global company, Charles River is involved in every stage of drug development and discovery to drug safety testing. And then within the business, there's multiple business units. And so I'm part of the Microbial Solutions business unit. And so what that business unit does is that when you have drug manufacturers that need to manufacture anything that goes from any pharmaceutical drug that needs to be tested for quality, we provide endotoxin bacteria testing, instruments, and reagents. So we are part of a broader organization based out of business, but this business unit is based out of Charleston. Going back in time, our story actually starts in 1987. And in 1987, the EndoSafe business was founded. And that business is really focused on endotoxin detection that uses the blood of the horseshoe crab to detect when there's endotoxins involved in any sort of drug. So there's a natural resource component as to why the business was started here. So we received an FDA license in 1989. So we have a biological license at our facility in Charleston that we've had for many years. And so part of that is, why we took root initially in South Carolina was that the natural resources that were here, but we've grown into a global organization. So we are now 18 facilities globally. We have about 900 employees globally, and about 300 of which are in Charleston. And so in 1994, the EndoSafe business was acquired by Charles River. And so, since that time, we've grown as part of this broader ecosystem. So when you look at, kind of what that growth path was, mentioned the horseshoe crab as a natural resource, and what the state involvement in that was, is one of the things that we worked closely with the state was to, support regulations and laws that would preserve and protect the horseshoe crabs. And so the state was a tremendous asset in securing that sort of protection for horseshoe crabs, because prior to that, they were at risk of the baiting industry, which can go and harvest and then use it for bait for other fishing. In South Carolina, that's not allowed. But we've grown beyond just a company that relies upon horseshoe crabs. So we've acquired other businesses that do bacteria detection, which is our Celsus line, and then we acquired a company that does bacteria identification, which is our Acugenics line. So if you have a bacteria and you need to know what it is, you send it to one of our labs and they'll run tests on it and tell you exactly what that bacteria is, so that the organization can then go and do remediation if they have something in their facility, as to, they know specifically how to get rid of that based on what that bacteria was. So, mentioned we're a global organization, but building from South Carolina, we now have offices in Dublin, France, Germany, and Brussels in Europe. We also have locations in Korea, India, Singapore, Australia, and China. And then also in the Americas, we have a growing office in Brazil. So in Europe, that's been a core part of our strategy. So, we have a large distribution center in Europe, in Dublin, that ships out to our rest of world organization or customers. And then we have labs in France and Germany, where actually we do manufacturing in Germany as well. And we do manufacturing in China. But this was all based out, it grew out of the business that was here in South Carolina. So a couple years ago, we started looking at expansion opportunities. And so expansion within the US, we continue to grow our manufacturing capabilities here in Charleston. And so, we needed to find additional space. And so part of what we have here is that kind of corporate function of the business unit. And so we started talking with the state of South Carolina, local Charleston economic development organizations. And they were very keen on what can we do to help you grow as an existing company here. And instead of exploring other options, could we have looked at moving the kind of company functions over to Europe was an option, as we built out this new distribution center. So the resources that came to bear here was the State Department of Commerce. You had local Charleston County Economic Development. And then you had organizations like the Charleston Regional Development Alliance. So they all kind of come together and they helped figure out, what are those incentives that was mentioned earlier about, there's things that are based off of the, is there capital investment, job growth that goes with that. And so they came together and, helped us to influence that decision as to why it made sense to continue to grow here. And it's South Carolina is our home, will remain our home, and part of that story as well is the external to just those economic development organizations. You have organizations like SC Bio that are really there, that are there to attract new businesses, but also support businesses that are here and bring the right resources to bear. So they're looking at how do you train and educate your workforce? What are some programs through technical colleges that can be brought to bear? Over the last, I'd say, 3 to 4 years, the community of life sciences has really taken shape beyond where it was before. Prior to this, we kind of worked somewhat independently as Charles River. We didn't have a lot of connections with other parts of the organization, but as you grow, you start to see how other life sciences companies in the area help drive more talent to the region, other companies coming to the region. One of the big benefits of South Carolina itself is it's a desirable place to live for many folks. It's close to the beaches, it's got great weather, so that's a big selling point, but you need to also have the education infrastructure in the area. So we've got great universities throughout the state. There's a talent pool coming in, but in a manufacturing organization, you don't always need a college educated workforce. You need more of a technical workforce that's can go work in a manufacturing. So SC Bio is working with technical colleges in the area to build up those skill sets and programs to generate awareness. So really modeling it off of the successes that have happened in the state, from the aerospace industry with Boeing has a tremendous presence in Charleston area. The automotive industry, where you had BMW set their roots 20 plus years ago up in the upstate near Greenville. And with that came all the suppliers and all of the education programs, and the universities were a critical part of that. And so you're seeing a lot of that happening in the life sciences space now as well, to accelerate that growth. When you look at that map, and if you were to look at that map 4 to 5 years ago, it's a dramatically different story. So you're seeing that velocity coming in the growth of the state as a life sciences hub. Companies like Charles River are seeing this as a place where you can continue to grow and expand, and pull in talent. And within our site, we're doing we got kind of the business unit corporate functions, but we do instrument assembly, we do labs, we do reagents, we have automated and manual manufacturing, we do R&D. So it's a really diverse skill set that we need here. And even despite COVID coming, where more and more remote opportunities people want to avail themselves of that, there's still a core of functions that when you have lab spaces, et cetera, that will continue to be critical to be on site for. So as we look down the road, we continue to look not just with the current expansions that we've got in place, but where do we go next? How do we continue to grow our footprint here? What are the new products that we're going to do? And South Carolina continues to be a critical part of how we expand our business, and it helps to launch into what we can sell globally. So we're really happy.
What a fantastic story, Dan. Thank you for telling us that. I think that for the companies on the call, it's really interesting to hear how you view South Carolina as a launching point to reach these other markets, both in Europe and in South America and the rest of North America, I'm sure. Can you, before you go, I'm wondering if you could just say a few words, as I understand you're a board member of SC Bio, and how has that organization really, what advice do you have, I guess, for companies that are on the call today, listening and thinking about their market entry for the US, knowing the resources that we have in the state? What's your advice to them?
Sure. Organization, SC Bio is a tremendous asset because they have a variety of member organizations that they can help network with. Through that, there's economic development organizations, there's organizations like us and Nephron who, have created sort of, where do you get the talent pool, where we can be a resource to help answer questions. But then there's other organizations that do kind of FDA consulting support. There's organizations that help do economic development consulting support, not just with the economic development organizations, but they actually help, what are the things that you need to make sure you're availing yourself with and compliant with. So the diversity of organizations that you can tap into from an SC Bio is unmatched in terms of the state, and how you can start bringing, when you look at your business as a whole, you need to look at not just site selection or not just, talent, but it's there, you can touch into lots of different things, which has been great.
Wonderful. What's the weather like today?
The weather is going to be hot. It's going to be 90 degrees, but sunny. And, I'm actually, I grew up in South Carolina. It's, it's one of the greatest places. I've been lots of places around the world, and still Charleston itself is one of my favorite spots in the world. So
I agree. I love South Carolina too. Well, Dan, thanks so much for sharing your experience with us today and giving our companies on the call today some really good ideas to pursue.
absolutely.
So that is the end of our hour. I'm looking to see if there's any questions here from anyone, and I don't see anything. I will be sending a recording of today's session out tomorrow to all of you. So if you do have any questions, feel free to just respond right back. And in the meantime, everyone stay well and have a good day or evening wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.